Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. Happy Sunday. This is HP Shalom from beautiful California, where it is a little overcast today, thankfully, protecting us from an intense sun. And it's a very cool and spacious day with a lot of moisture in the air, which is a very nice state to be in. So today, we're sort of going to transition from all these teachings a little bit. But why don't we take a moment first to sort of center ourselves, find our alignment, and find that space, which is very apparent this morning where I live. That sort of cool space that allows us just to be. That space that holds us and gives us breath and life. So let's take a couple minutes here. Okay. There's always these little odds and ends. It's important to have one's alignment. It's always important to take that moment of space if one needs it. It's a luxury one gives to oneself. And if one is, excuse me, around others, or like I'm broadcasting, it's a luxury we give to others to speak from a place that's aligned, that's calibrated. That's in balance. And it's from that space that we can live our lives in an unbalanced world with highly distorted energies and thoughts and actions. And it doesn't seem to be getting any better. We can find our balance, orient ourselves, live in balance, act in balance, think in balance. Our energy is balanced, and from which our thoughts and emotions and actions and ideas and wisdom becomes more and more whole. And in many ways, that's the place from which I try to teach and to guide people to be able to regain and to increasingly live from that place of our birthright, that divine alignment that was always meant to be the place from which we live. So, over the last, over 2 months, I would think, 2.5 months possibly, I've been giving a lot of teachings, which I didn't realize I would give. In the middle of our supposed winter retreat, when we were going to focus more on practicing and finding that alignment. But I guess it was time, as the explanation of one image, which I thought would last one session, suddenly grew and then led to more, which led to more. And it's a very beautiful thing, because the whole path and the reason why things are done a certain way, why I orient things a certain way, my personal path through life and how I learned things was laid out in a very clear way that hopefully makes sense and is logical and aligns with the energetic philosophy and almost energetic scientific way, how things progress and how things are created, how our bodies work, and about alignment, physical, energetic, psychological, how that influences us and how that influences our world in turn, and how the world affects us. And that symbiotic relationship of the different sephirots that exist in different manifestations. The earth one, there's society one, there's a family one, there's our personal one, our work one, right? And how we all sort of work. And our desire, I think, for every human being to be happy, satisfied, content, and whole. I think that's true for all life and the planet itself. So the beautiful teachings from beautiful traditions that I've gave, Tree of Life, which comes from the beautiful sacred Kabbalah teachings, mixed with other teachings I've been taught, with my understanding and my practice and what I've come to understand and know as to be true through my own personal experience, as well as it matching with sacred texts that I've studied or have been taught, and lines up with wisdoms of great, great people, great scholars, great yogis, great ascetics, the people who lived in caves or in the desert, who studied in libraries, who learned from their teacher, 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 through many, many hundreds, if not thousands of years. Sacred texts and everything. They point to a way of being, a way of seeing, a way of learning, a way of practicing, a way of aligning. Many different beautiful paths, many different focuses, but people who, the group of people, also focused on paths which focus deeply on themselves and their interior life, their interior processes, their ability to bring in all the beautiful teachings, practices, prayers, texts, sacred texts, biblical texts, and make it flower within them. That they try to become the living embodiment, the living manifestation of those things. And they meditate and contemplate and pray and work on the things that hold them back from the fruition, from that endpoint that all those beautiful religious, spiritual things point towards, the path of being, the things that keep them, hold them back. And that rests a lot with us. The texts are there, the practices are there, the sacred Torah, Tanakh, sacred books are there. The practices are there, the traditions, albeit become a little more obscure in this world, but with voices like mine, they become less and less obscure and more available. They're there. Yet, including myself, there are challenges to fully be able to live from that sacred place, to act from that sacred place, to, in its full perfection, to balance those sephirots, to have a proper flow through one's chakras and being, to have fully healthy bodies and minds and actions, at least for those aspects of our lives that we can control. There are energetic imbalances within us which keep us from fully living the life that we're directed towards living from religious point of view as how we should be, those wonderful guidelines and the beautiful lives of saints and prophets and holy people, even the ones not so famous. Some obscure person who lived in the desert, yet there's one text written by a student of his, or written by himself somewhere, and you realize what a beautiful soul that lived there. And they're inspiring. And you wonder, well, why can't I be more like that? And that, my friends, is the path. I think it's the purpose of life. We're born here in a less than optimal situation. We're not born in Eden, where God walked amongst us with a Shekhinah is literally in every bush, though it is still here in every bush, but in its full blooming and perfection, where all thoughts and emotions are balanced and perfect, and we live in bliss and harmony and happiness. We're born into something that's less than that. And it affects us in the womb. It affects us as we're being born. Birth is a highly traumatic process. We're in the womb, and hopefully all is nice and sweet in there. There's a nice vibration in our family, often not so case that the mother eats perfectly and is well rested, and we're just there hanging out in wonderful, beautiful, warm fluid, sort of spacious, floating in it. And then comes the traumatic birth, where we have a shock a very cold air, and no longer being held, and possibly pain, and our mother is traumatized. And that's how we come into this world. And then life happens. So the question is, what do we do about it? How do we live our life? So even if life wasn't originally intended to be a test on how we go about dealing with this situation, it does become one. Being born into Eden is not a test. That's just living. Living in heaven is not a test, because we're in that perfection and we live and we enjoy. But being here, when we're offered so much, so many choices, some good, some bad, we can go with our healing to try to align ourselves back to God. So we are of that frequency. Being of a family, one has the frequency often of that family. So are we of the divine family? Are we of upper frequencies, ways of being? Are we similar to those prophets and saints, those wandering people in the desert who spend their whole lives contemplating and meditating? How do we get there? How do we heal? The dissonance, the unbalance within us, the pain within us, the trauma and hurts and regrets, wishing we can go in a time machine and fix things. I've had many flashbacks over the last 2 weeks of things I wish I could have done a little different, where I've hurt people or missed a chance. You know, it's not easy. And how do we let go of that? Why is it coming up now? I haven't thought about that in 30 years. Why do I suddenly make it so important now when it wasn't all that important back then, and I quickly had a reason why it was this way, which is totally legitimate. Yet somehow I double back and judge myself now, which makes no logical sense. That's a body moving through energy. That's a body that's healing and releasing things. That's a body that's trying to become whole, which in turn helps our frequency to become whole. So the teachings of the last 2.5 months are wonderful, metaphysical, incredible things which I've come across and learned and contemplated along with all of you as I was teaching it. And amazing. Some of the most beautiful things, thanks to wonderful teachers that passed it on to their students and kept going for hundreds of years until it reached us to bless our age and to bless us. But what do we do with it? That's the point of this. It wasn't taught in some interesting thing for the sake of it by itself. It's a model. It's intended to help us, to be used, to be analyzed, contemplated on how to apply it from my humble perspective. How to apply things we've been learned from the many different sources we've learned from in our lives, how to filter through it, to take the good, discard aspects of it that are off, and how to integrate it. how to bring it in to our thoughts, our minds, our energies, and our bodies, so we get the benefits. The benefits which were the purpose of why these teachings came about, to be a guide, to provide a framework, a paradigm, a theology, a science of how to live, how to view, how to put into context our being, our presence, how to work with our reality, how to situate our reality, how to engage with our reality in a way that brings us those things that we do always desire deep in ourselves: wholeness, peace, tranquility. If we can't have it outside of us, how do we have it as the source from within? An alignment to something greater than us, to give our life purpose beyond the obvious things, but a purpose that transcends, a purpose that makes us understand why we're here. What's the meaning of life? Many different meanings. Many feel beautiful things, taking care of the family. All these wonderful things that are purposes and give great meaning of lives, taking care of ourselves, living a good life. It's all different meanings. How do we do it well? Scholarship gives meaning to life. Everything hopefully brings meaning. But what's the overall purpose of life? How do we go about it? How do we grow as opposed to diminish during life? We've all known beautiful people. I was thinking this week of people I knew in school, from grade school, and how they all had such wonderful sparks, most of them, in life, and were so bubbly. And then with time, there was a wearing down and a diminishment. How do we maintain, and yet a few maintain that spark? How do we live in our fullness and in alignment with the source of life, of the universe, of this planet, of it all? We're not meant to be disconnected, sort of getting 20% of the juice of life, the energy of life, with a lot of sparks and static, and it's better one day and not so good the next, and some days it feels completely disconnected. The roots of our tree aren't getting the sustenance of life, of the Creator, of the Shekhinah. Roots are dead, roots are clogged and dry, so the nutrients, the essence, the kundalini, the energy that goes through the sifrots, the Shekhinah, the blessings, those rainbow lights, aren't flowing, and then we feel off, and our actions are off. We get illnesses, we get mental disturbances, we get unpleasant flashbacks where we judge ourselves, judge others, anger, depression, and sadness, aggression. All these things are manifestations of imbalances. The spiritual path, in my humble opinion, is working with these things. There's what happens to us from outside, from within us, flashbacks and balances, and how we handle it, how we react to it. Do we continue a cycle? Do we work to address it? How do we handle things that come from outside? It ultimately, when one reflects on it, that's about us. We tend to make things about the outside, and it really is. But we disempower, or our subconscious, or whatever it is. Things happen, things are happening, things are always happening, even from things within ourselves which we don't have control over, conscious control over. But how do we deal with it? How do we deal with our disconnected? We shouldn't disempower ourselves. For many years, and this is why I give examples of from myself, not to share about my life. I'm actually a very private person, believe it or not. It's to show through examples that I've lived through, because they're real, and I have the best understanding from my own personal experience. So for many years, I went to places of worship, and they were deadened to me, and I couldn't feel them at all. Right? So it was the same. Let me just take one place in college. I first attended, hard to feel anything. The place didn't change. The music didn't change. The people did not change. Yet with time, I got really engaged, felt it, flowed with it, and soared and got nourishment. The only variable, the only difference was myself. Internal processes, internal agreeing to release into a space and remove the blocks and jump in and take a risk. Sometimes faking it until I actually felt it. Singing along, even though I couldn't quite do it with people next to me in the same way they were doing it. The frequency became contagious, and I caught it, and then I felt it, and then I ran with it. Became always devout, but became exceedingly devout and understood from a personal way of being, a reorientation. But that comes from a within process. And that is the purpose of these teachings of the last 2.5 months. And now comes a time to integrate it, to walk the walk, to touch into the wholeness that lives within. It's not meant to just inform us. And boy, I think of all the things I've learned on this planet, what I shared, I think, is clearly, the most beautiful and thorough and complete understanding. And it should awaken something within us, hopefully. Show us something. Inspire us. Find it very inspiring. And give us encouragement. To help us encounter a living frequency that's within us, that's outside of us, that's found in sacred texts and music and ways of practicing, worshiping, even drumming or playing a flute or walking anywhere, in a forest, in the middle of a city, by the beach. That frequency that is in everything and everywhere. And as we clear distortions or imbalances within us, we're able to link with that frequency that's outside. But it's very much within us, our instrument, our radio telescope, of how our bodies, being really these telescopes of being able, of sort of like antennas, that's what I want to say, that pick up what's going outside and feel it deep within, because we're connected to that within us. That we are able to get that signal and feel it truly, and that alignment of presence, that we are balanced in our center. So there's this communion that's actually very solid and hard to throw off by imbalances around us. Teachings are meant to help us align in our original resonance, in our original frequency that's our birthright. It's always been sort of there. All the texts point on how to do things to be in alignment with that. Teachings to become in alignment with that. Practices to become in alignment with that. Yoga, exercise. Look, my buffalo drum, which I'm going to start using again, is a very deep frequency that helps release thoughts and release blockages in the body. There are so many different things. People play classical music. Beautiful classical music helps our frequencies and align. There's a lot of things there that help. Because the frequency isn't out there. It's also in here, in us. It's in our souls. The Shekhinah is not just outside in our world, as we've learned over the last 2.5 months. It's very much within us as well. And it helps us reconnect to the source of everything. Of us, our world, the universe. And if we're religious, we call it God, Hashem, Adonai, Yahweh, Elohim, Abba, many words. Or, if we're not, the source of where it all comes from, which has the attributes of God: wisdom, compassion, love, whole, healed, alive, eternal. And as we reconnect, it's not merely theoretical. It's not merely a book says this, somebody says that. It's not merely through theory or through a belief, but it comes from a direct, energetic recognition. We recognize it. we feel it. We know it's real and true because we've bathed in those waters. We're bathing in those waters. And these teachings are gates. They help us get confidence. They show us why things make sense, which allows us to orient and do things that help, because now we're understanding the paradigm, how our situation is, how it got to the way it is. And it shows a path back to wholeness. It's a gate. It's our inheritance from centuries past, now available to us by the grace of God and those beautiful people who sometimes, at great risk to themselves, passed it on to the 21st century. Like those beautiful cathedrals of 1,000 years ago, still here. Which inspire us. But they're a gate to an inner state. When one prays, one engages to an inner state. We may pray outside, but it's to have that relationship, and one can pray inwardly with that inner silence to receive. We ask blessings. Because we yearn for something. That connection, that the cathedral is not just outside of us, but it comes to live inside of us. Texts and services come with us into our week. That tank we fill up by doing all these things, the yoga, the teachings, the walks in the woods, fill up our little tank that powers us through a week, that strengthens, that protects, that keeps that glow as we go through life. So these teachings hopefully inspire something deep within ourselves, an awareness, like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, I've always kind of been drawn to this. Oh, I always thought there was sort of this, and hopefully things start clicking. And it's not because necessarily of the logic, which it is as well, but we recognize something about it deep within ourselves. We recognize it's pointing to something we feel within ourselves, that we sense, and that place also of where we ultimately, whether we realize it or not, is kind of what we were aiming towards. That place of alignment, of happiness, of wholeness, of peace and calm, like this beautiful California morning. The sun doesn't have a UV of 15 that scorches the second it hits your skin. It's overcast. The colors show. We feel held. And we can breathe. And things aren't aggressive. The birds are chirping. There's moisture in the air. and things feel calm and peaceful. It's 8 o'clock. People are still asleep. There's not a lot of noise. There is no noise. You feel this spaciousness. That place very much lives within us as well. As we learn to become more present, we can come to engage within that space within us as we go through life, and be able to live through that space and feel that frequency. Because it lives within us. The outside has a reflection within us. It stirs something within us because it's inside. If it did not have a frequency within us, it wouldn't affect us. Because that frequency has to bounce within us for us to feel it. I gotta think of a way to explain this. I hope that sort of makes sense. It's something to contemplate. The example that comes to mind, hopefully it'll work. The color red exists outside of us, right? I'm looking at something that's red. If my mind didn't have red in me, I wouldn't recognize it. So if I'm colorblind, red could exist outside, but I don't have that resonance within me to relate to the red. Does that make sense? So whatever we find and inspire us is because something within us has that reaction and frequency, is able to feel it. And that shows that peace and calm, that divine inspiration, the spark of life that we seek without ourselves to feel alive and whole through good or very distorted or off ways, depending, has that balance within us. And so we learn, I hope to share how to find that and live with that within ourselves. And it's a high vibrational, very clear, very aligned, full of wise wisdom, balanced place that does exist. And like an archaeologist, we work through the layers so we can see that 24 karat gold. We clear through the blemishes. And naturally, without any effort, we realign. Things recalibrate by itself. We just have to learn to stimulate it, to sort of activate it, to resonate with it. But the frequency itself is perfect. It's the distortion that's above it. We begin to awaken. To what we always are. And we restore ourselves to that root. There's a frequency. There's a geometry. There's a presence. There's a life force. There's a Shekhinah. There's that divine alignment of Hashem. That's there at the gate. Our presence, our stillness help us to see it, to feel it, to resonate in it, which becomes our source of healing. We can adjust our frequencies outside through mitzvot, practice or actions, all beautiful, wonderful yogas. But there's inner yogas. And there's inner actions. There's inner presence. There's inner engagement. And as modern people, we've sort of lost those abilities to do that. But most importantly is our awareness and knowledge that that even exists or is a possibility, much less encountering the means to do that. That we turn our awareness inwards. That doesn't mean we neglect anything outwards or we change any of our external practices of how we go about things spirituality or religiously, as long as it's aligned and proper. But we also add an internal component, which makes the external components that feed us, that gives us sustenance, more powerful, because it resonates deeper in us, and we get into a feedback loop that we spiral upwards with greater and greater connection to God, or the essence of everything that has all the perfect qualities. But the inner work is so essential. The teachings on the Sifrot points to inner work. The beautiful image that shows the path shows the inner work, the blessings necessary. The image here points to the reality that's within us. The inner work helps us connect to that. If that tree of life, with the perfect whole God at the center, the God that manifested everything, and his full wholeness before division, existed outside of us, we would be in Eden or in heaven. Yeah? So that's not possible. We're not living in that right now. Maybe one day. But this tree of life can be excavated within us. Not maybe ever to that potential that is shown, but can we get closer to that? Can we resonate to the truth that it's saying that that tree of life is connected within us? That tree of life is the very source of everything that's us. And it's very much inside of us in that perfected way. But it's buried. It's hard to change our society, even our families and the structures. It's very complex and it's ingrained, and there's a lot of momentum on how things are. And it sometimes takes decades or generations for things to align, or it could happen relatively quickly. Who knows? But this within us is possible. We have control on how we decide to orient ourselves to get closer to that ideal state of these Aleph tree of life, Sephirotes, that is being pointed towards. It's a vision, and you can make it whatever you want. Hashem, Adonai, it's just the core of all the names, but it's there, that 24 karat gold, that we have control over, because we have ultimately an ability to work with our minds and our emotions and our bodies and our pathways and our structure with our current. That is where we can make a real difference, for sure. And that's what these teachings, I believe, point towards. The inner work. Not to neglect anything else. Nothing outside necessarily may need to change. Oh, it may need to change, but we're not aware of it. We don't need to change necessarily anything. It could always be an addition to, an understanding to slow down, to clear, so that becomes unearthed. So the blessings of that can permeate through all the layers, filter through all the layers within us, so that wisdom, that knowing, seeing things a different way than other people, in a clearer way, that helps guide our lives and make it easier, and also gives us a peace and a trust with a capital T, because that frequency emanates from within, and like a beautiful scent, beautiful incense, it incenses our inside and our thoughts and our brains, which in turn exudes through our actions, through our fields, into our families and into our worlds, and creates the external change as well. But engaging externally is one level. But like I've shown through the example, it could be all around us in a beautiful place of worship and song. But that's external if it doesn't get inside. And so by working within ourselves, we're able to experience things in a deeper way. Realigns our frequencies, opens our hearts, our understanding. There are many external paths that people have trained and learned, gone to school over, become religious teachers, priests, rabbis, all of it. This is a way of working from within as well. And to do that, one has to do the practices. Because you can't excavate, you can't take off the dirt unless you look at the soil and you start brushing it off. You learn how to use water to move away the soil, how to dig a little bit, how to start making the beautiful mosaic that is there come out into the sunlight, to shine and glow, to bring beauty to ourselves, into our worlds. How that beautiful essence, that beautiful Shekhinah, beautiful chariot of the Shekhinah, our beautiful hearts, how that can emanate to help reorder ourselves and our lives, and to release some of the distortion and hurt and imbalances that were there from the second we left our mothers, or may have actually been there as we were growing inside. And so when we learn to work with divine frequencies, with our presence, we learn to tune in, to tone ourselves, to fine-tune ourselves to better and better and more wholesome and alive and bigger, actually, frequencies. All that becomes available. It's a return to essence. These teachings are a gate, an open invitation to walk through and engage with it, to walk through the divine blessing that these knowledge and practices allow us to receive a grace to return. If we didn't have the teachings, the texts, the Torah, or any of it, how would we even know? There'd be no guide. We would be lost. Some people may come, with something, but guess what? It would have come from a search within. But if that wasn't available, then there would be no knowledge of it. We would just be adrift and lost, battered by all the winds of life, right? And there's people alive, and a lot of people who don't have any of the spiritual or religious inclination, and look at what's going on with them and see that without that touchstone, without that ability to have something to ground or orient themselves around, how it's sort of how that manifests, how that has an effect on them, how it's hard for there to be a change, even if they look for it. Is there a sense of lostness about that? Wondering. This is why so many people who have deep alignments in history were very quiet, who are often places by themselves in temples or in nature. They learned that the power of it is also through prayer and study, but it's working with one's alignment within as well that activates their prayers in a deeper way, that activates their study and their actions in a deeper way. It's what I feel to be, it requires both. It's the two wings of the eagle. Internal work, external things we do. Internal things we do, external things we do. They're not exclusive. They're highly complementary. Working internally is known throughout the ages as being the quickest path, because we address head-on those things that block us, which allow the external nourishment to go deeper. It's like having a very hard ground that's very dry, but sort of baked in. So when it rains, the water doesn't kind of go in and penetrate deeply. It blows off, right? So we water ourselves with beautiful things from the outside, but without tending into our soil, to our makeup, to our roots, healing our roots, nurturing our roots, cutting off the dead roots, encouraging new roots to grow, be very hard for our tree to get the nutrients from all the blessings that are outside of us. There's a lot for it to work and overcome before it really reaches us to nourish. But if we work and look into ourselves, work with the energy of it to crack that soil, to release the dead roots, to activate new growth through energetic practices and meditations and prayers and things, then it all works. The external with the internal. The two wings of an eagle so beautiful. They fly so high, they barely have to flap their wings, if at all. They flow with the current upwards and downwards. They're fast, they're gorgeous, they're sleek, highly sensitive, great eyesight. Without one of its wings, it doesn't fly, it falls out of the sky. Their lift comes with working with everything they are in perfect alignment, in wholeness. Working with one's presence and what we do inside reorders us, initiates us into healing and a deep remembrance of what's inside. We start getting a taste of it. We realize it's not just words from old texts or some disembodied voice on YouTube, but we get a taste of it. We start to experience it and we're like, oh my God, this is real. There is, oh my gosh. And then we're really encouraged to go forward. We realize, oh, this is what I've been looking for. And then you start tuning in. And change really, really starts happening. It's not merely the ideas. It's not merely the teaching. It's the wisdom and what those teachings are pointing towards. The path that it shows. The light. The blessings that are contained within it that we can choose to activate by walking and doing actions in that direction. It points to a living frequency, but we have to turn towards that frequency. We have to open the shutters and clean our windows so that frequency really enters us and gets stronger and stronger. But its strength is always at 100%. The Shekhinah is always at 100%. As the Aleph tree of life on your screen is always at 100% within us. There is no dimming of that. It's the uncovering. It's the dirt. It's everything on top that we need to uncover, to clean. For that to really show, we drive around with very dirty windows on our car, and we think the outside world is very murky and whatever, and it very much could be, and in a large extent is. There's no shortage of things to pray about on this planet, unfortunately. But it's also affects us because the windows aren't clear enough, that the light that there is, we can't see. The nurturing that there is, can't see. Because the inside of us can't blow out and see fully that light. Because or see the sources of beauty or of wisdom, or to orient ourselves so we are in the presence or in situations that nourish and not deplete us. So these teachings show another world outside of our dirty windshields, and basically saying, clean me. Look, there's a lot there you're not seeing. And it's not our fault. It's really not. Blame, even for things we've done, is so not helpful, like I've said many times. We're a lot of a creation of things that happen to us that are beyond our control. And these teachings point to ways and an understanding of reality that help us get out of the car, get out the Windex, and clean our windshields. There's a living frequency from God that resonates deep within us. It's also outside of us. Frequencies in this planet that as we clean our antenna, we're able to connect with things that nourish us more. Our antenna is able to focus on certain signals and get better reception, more juice, which nourishes us. And because our bodies are more sensitive, it's less for that frequency to have to fight against and work through for it to really land and fill up our batteries. And the frequency is also emanating from within us. It's outside of us, it's in us, it's both, it's just there. Because once one is living in that current, in that divine flow of that stream I've mentioned, in the flow of that beautiful little river, and we let go and we allow that current to take us, those questions fall away because we're in it. Does it matter that it's from inside or outside? Well, it helps if you want to share it to someone to try to explain it. But for the person personally, really doesn't matter because you're in it, and that's all that really matters. You're in that flow. You're in the Merkava chariot, or you feel the pull of it, and you learn to realize that yes, this is a real pull and not something subconscious and a little messed up that's really going to mess me up because this ain't right. And you learn to distinguish the two, and you learn to purify. So you really start feeling what is real and whole and healing in us. That internal. We go through the woods, dark, cold, full of bushes, and we go through and we see the light at the edge, the warm light. We cut through the bushes and we get to the clearing, and that river we've been hearing all along. The warmth that we feel at times through the woods, the voices saying this way, go this way, the text, the maps, the groups of it that we intend, hopefully whole and good and aligned, says this way, here, find sustenance, here's something. And we go through our walk and then we find that. That attainment really is inside of us. It's a place, it's a frequency, it's a communion. And ultimately that resonance originates when it fully lands as an energy that becomes us. We play a lot of too much, I think, in modern people to the external, and we've lost the internal. and we've lost the abilities on how to connect with the internal. There's philosophies that doesn't trust the internal, that it's beyond redemption, that it's completely off, and beyond reprieve, beyond fixing. And in fact, turning internally will only, there's no light in it. Well, I don't buy into that at all. Because there is good in people, there is light from inside, there is that purity within. And we learn to uncover that. We're returning to our axis, A-X-I-S. It's the center of ourselves that is balanced. That center of ourselves, like when we put our fingertips together, which I'm literally doing as I said the word, on both sides with the fingers a little apart. So if people maybe do that, below the pecs, thumbs on thumbs, fingers on that, so it's a little open, almost like a prayer position, which it sort of is. That aligned place that I've been teaching people, not so much the last couple of months, but before, right? Not with the fingers handled, directed not too high, not too at 90 degrees, but that perfect sweet spot where one kind of feels that balance with the back straight. Do you feel that perfect angle? And you feel like, oh, I feel aligned. I feel like, oh, I just feel that center. That's helping to touch in with our axis. That center within ourselves when we're aligned with the left side of us and the right side of us and the top and the down. And in that place, our minds feel like it's entered into that open, pregnant space like exists outside here in California this morning. And like I was trying to show people last week at the very beginning, with that little spontaneous meditation practice that just arose out of nowhere, that how to find that place within where there's that alignment. And from that space, a wellspring, a fountain of blessings exists, of healing and alignment, because in that space, all the trauma we hold in our bodies and in our bones are able to leave. It's that alignment which allows our bodies to finally breathe. God knows we all need it. I need it. That alignment where we can learn to let go and let God. That doesn't mean we let God in our lives, because sometimes we really need both hands on the driving wheel to move things, because we act, we do, and we also pray that God's got his hand on the driving wheel as well. We are not passive beings and allow God to do everything. It don't work that way. I just want to make clear, because there's a misconception about that. It's both. But we learn to let go and let God. When we work to align ourselves, to do that interior work, we allow our batteries to discharge, because we hold on to it. There's a magic force field of all the frequencies we hold. And if you feel our bodies, it always feels tight. There's a holding. Those batteries don't discharge because we feed into it with a feedback loop that locks us into it, with habitual ways of acting and of thinking, of seeing things, a way of not feeling or being able to engage in sacred places, which is habitual, meaning It's a habit, yeah, habitual habit, yeah, go figure, right? That's a habit of how we are. It's just how it is with us. We don't know any better, or we can't change it. So when we learn to let go, when we pray, when we walk in nature, learn to calm our minds, learn the sacred names of God, it allows for that discharge to happen, that locked inness, that force field of habit, of frequency that keeps it trapped in our body. And we learn to let go and let God. There, in that place, is when we take our hands off that driving wheel, because it just needs to emanate out. The source is pure. God lives there. The Aleph, like I've been showing, what it represents is nothing new. It's a concept that's existed through centuries, that we can put any name of God there. It's just a closer name to us, an emanation that has occurred, so a derivative from the Aleph to a voice that said, let there be light, a thought before that, then let there be light, and then over time, different names of God that we can call Him, which leads to that source that has no name. Yes? So we can engage at any level because it's all linked into it. Which plug do we choose to use? Ultimately, hopefully it's a plug that leads to this, but there's many different forms of plugs. You go to Europe, it needs to be round. I've seen plugs where they're kind of straight, and it's a little different. I think Asia has its own plugs, if I remember correctly. Right, there's different plugs. I think India has its own plug. Right? So there's many different little plugs which can give us access to the same source, hopefully. Make sure. Right? Because, different frequencies, different plugs could lead you to different things. Some helpful, not. Some really off, some partially off, right? I teach what I know is 100% on. Right? So that's offered. As we plug in with hopefully what in the names of God, Hashem, Adonai, Yahweh, Elohim, Abba, and we could use different of these facets, right? We bring in that living frequency, which interacts with the frequency in our body. And with these names, this is a divine frequency, an energetic manifestation of God Himself, that's available to us to bring in an aligned, properly vibrated frequency to engage with our own, to calm down our distortions, what is off with us, to bring in that divine healing inside. Because the issues with us are not outside of us. They're inside of us. It takes a while to understand that fully and to live that. It ultimately, an understanding and living with that empowers ourselves and not the outside. Now, it may come from the outside and it may very well affect us. But by looking at this orientation of thinking, one begins to realize that how it affects us, we have the power over at least that part of it. And by having that wholeness as opposed to more damage occurring, which throws us off, we develop that healthy force field where we are in a frequency within ourselves that allows there to be balance through adversity and challenges, that allows us to heal and to let go of things that occurred from outside of us, which in turn damaged our roots, the parasites that ate at our tree, the axes that came to cut our trunk, the pestilence that affected our fruit and our leaves. The names of God is like a fertilizer, like a medicine, like water. It's like a hoe. How to describe that? Something that moves the soil around, like opens it up so you could plant things. So it's like a hoe which allows the water to soak in deeply, as well as a prayer that's complete, because it's the name of God. So when you say his name and you resonate with the frequency of his divinity, you're in prayer because you're in communion. You do it with love and wholeness in your heart. You are aligning yourself with his frequency. And with practice, you could lose yourself in that frequency and be in it, in the stream, and quite easily. It's what makes the practice so powerful. Using multiple names, one name, or just an Aleph to resonate with, or the name Yahweh, or the name Hashem, and that's what you resonate with, written out in front of you. Different access points, which I'll get into in the future, but it's to live and to bring within you a living frequency that you resonate from inside, which affects the energy of your body, aligns the energetic freeways in your body, which in turn aligns your mind, your energies, your thoughts, your psychology, as represented in part through the tree of life, which in turn affects your thoughts, your manifestations, your ability to reason, which affects your actions, and your world, which in turn comes back and affects you, your thoughts, and your energy. And so these names, this living frequency, which these teachings point on how we can work with it, how access is possible, that there's life within us and that it is possible. Therefore, the journey leads to something. It's not a freeway leading to a canyon. That's a rock face, and that was a road to nowhere. These practices are not roads to nowhere. This is why so many people over different traditions across the world speak of the road that I'm speaking about. It's not as common in this day and age, but there were environments and cultures in the past, some today, that still speak of these things. An inner alignment that's aligned with God is possible. It exists. The Sifro tree of life is such a powerful image because it says that. I have it up on my prayer space. And when I pray, do the names of God, or just sit there in that space, present, that symbol always just hits me. That's our home. That's ground zero. It's where we came from. It's where we're going, God willing. And our actions and intent and effort leads us there, or it doesn't lead us there. And that's our life path. But that symbol shows that's always there. We've never been separated from it. We may have forgotten it. We may not know it's there. But that wholeness always exists. External of us, internal of us, up in heaven with God looking down, God in front of us, God in us, God in our world. Are we able to resonate and to see that, to feel that, the multiple source of blessings that are there to perk us up? Having a bad day, but you remember on the way to the gym, there was a beautiful place of grass with buildings all around, but it was perfect and you felt calm. Well, in that moment that you were able to see, there was God in that. And the rest of the day could have been horrendous, but in that moment, there was that wholeness. Was that enough for your frequency to find its alignment to hold you for the rest of the day when you were being battered? It's an ability. When we do the name of God, we're putting into effect the teachings that I've been teaching for the last 2.5 months. When we do the yoga, when we try to eat better, God knows I need to eat better, take the multivitamins, watch our circle of friends, what we do, what we engage in, the programming, the TV, the movies, how does that affect us, the music we listen to, and we start cultivating our soil and our environment. We remove the weeds, we till the earth, moving the earth around with a hoe, we plant good seeds, we cut off what needs to be cut off, our dead roots, things that aren't good, heal what needs to be healed, and then our tree begins to bloom. The names of God, the mitzvot, the practices, going to services, taking time to pray, silence, that's rain, that's sunlight, that's fertilizer, that's medicine. It's the spray that kills the diseases, the parasites. It's the fertilizer in the soil. These replenish our inner tree. And as our inner tree replenishes, it replenishes the trees of our families and friends and pets, of our environment, of our communities, of our cities, of our societies, of our countries, and then ultimately our whole earth with the animals and the oceans. The world as it is a manifestation of individual misalignment, communal, not necessarily every person, but as we put the addition of everything that humanity is, the equal sign is what we see on the outside. As we work on ourselves, the tikkun, we naturally change what's around us. Tikkun, our world. Heal our world. We can do it at the same time, but we shouldn't neglect and devalue ourselves, that we don't have an effect at all, because affecting our children, making them grow up properly, being nice to our partners, good neighbors, vote certain ways, help the homeless, help our environment, has an effect. And it affects other people, which in turn they affect other people. So what's our engagement is ultimately the big question. Is our engagement with our world, with others, through our actions, our writings, our energy, is it helpful? Does it harm? Does it help? Does it hurt? Is it high frequency or is it lower frequency? Does it increase the frequency of our environment or does it lower it? Ultimately, at the very least, let's hope it has a neutral effect. At a minimum, that we don't put out more poisons and dissonance and bad effects that makes everything worse. So we work on ourselves so at least we don't add to what's off. We work to ourselves out of hope that we help heal and lift up to the extent we can. But ultimately, everybody's life is their own. We may have effect on others, which in turn very much affects us. But aside from that, we're born, we die. Like my father used to say, we're born alone and we die alone. It's very German that way. It's very wise. Meaning, only us leave to face where we are individually going to go. And we may find our family and friends on the other side, or we may not find some of them. But that's an individual path as well. We're all walking individual paths. Now, paths of what I'm teaching take into account others and our effect, because that in turn is a manifestation of how we're living, and it helps. It's part of the whole of a good life. But let's focus always also individually. This is our individual personal walk. How are we walking? And the teachings that I've taught is not a dogma. It is not you must do this. It's not like, well, there are no other ways to understand life. No, it's an offering as to this makes sense, but now, what do we do about it? And what we are doing, and we're going to do, and we're going to work on, and we're going to work on ways, some of it really fun and very interesting, and a lot of whoa, wow, oh my God, and practices that are zesty and interesting, because I can't do boring. Things that are very alive, helps us return into that center, into that axis of alignment, where truth, blessing, and God lives. It's the very core of our being. It's that central line that runs above our head to God Himself, to deep below our feet. It's that central point where everything orients towards. And it's how we balance our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. And it aligns ourselves with our purpose, our aligned purpose, when the Sephirots are aligned, which is our true self that's there. We never lost it. It's always there waiting to be uncovered, our higher self, our perfected self, the beautiful aspects that people see in us, which sometimes we may not see in ourselves, the more perfected person that we hope to become, that we work towards becoming. And we're able to hold that center increasingly as the world and its energies and its balances imbalances, its blessings, its no blessings or bad blessings, moves all around us. And one is able to get stability in that Shekhinah, in our core, in that divinity, as shown in the Aleph tree of life. We can become anchored and yet able to move and be fluid with things around us. We could be rooted but also responsive, strong but gentle. Our branches and leaves can move with the wind. Our trunks and branches can move with the storm. We're not too rigid, and yet we don't get blown over. We become a dancer in the dance of life, in a wholesome, aligned, sacred, enlightened way. So this is why I now pivot to the practices, because I don't introduce things because they're interesting. I've learned a lot of very interesting things that I will never speak about because it's not productive to attaining. Because there's plenty of beautiful things that I can speak about that point to things on how and ways to go about it, and interesting things that help. So we're going to take a 10-minute break. So take a 10-minute break. Let's take a 10-minute break. And then how about an additional 4 minutes on top of it, where people kind of get to their prayer space and light their incense. Well, put on the candle and then light their incense. And then we're going to work on cultivating our soil and watering our trees and putting in that fertilizer, on walking the path of the Sephirotes and the tree of life, to going through our road, our individual roads, to find that Merkava chariot, to find that river of life, and learn to swim in it, and learn for it to carry us. Okay. So 14 minutes. So what's that? That's 9:05. So 10 minutes just to rest, go to the bathroom, eat something. Try not to watch your phones. Maintain the calm space we've been cultivating, that space of knowledge and aspiration, and hopefully of beauty and light. And then after 10 minutes, just come back to your space and focus on your space of prayer. And if you don't have a space, that's fine. Wherever you pray, or just hold on to a holy book or nothing. Just be, if you're at work, you just create your own space, because that inner alignment of space, we carry it with us. We practice by creating a space at home to learn to orient ourselves and to feel it. But ultimately, that tabernacle, that shrine, that place of God, we carry it with us wherever we go. We come to feel it and know that it's always there, because that cathedral within, there is a cathedral within. There is a seat of our soul within us. And in that place, God does live. So we could have that in the office if we're not in front of a place, or if we're listening when we're on a bus. Don't do the practice while you're driving, please don't. But it's always with us. We could listen on a recording when we're on the airplane. We could meditate on the airplane. We feel the vibration of the humming of the engines. We hear it a little bit. Well, that's a powerful place to meditate at. We let go in the space, and if we're aligned enough, we can feel the spaciousness around the airplane, and we don't necessarily find it frightening. We find it quite liberating. The higher altitude and the lack of density we feel could be a space where we kind of relax and fall asleep. We let go and we trust the airplane. We remember to put on the earplugs. So we are able to cultivate our space in the chaos of the crying babies and the turbulence, because we've learned to let go, and therefore our journey is easier and we're smarter about it. We don't eat that meal when we should be sleeping, because we know we're going to be more jet lagged if we don't get in those 5 hours when we're on the airplane to help calibrate ourselves. We are engaged, and we know how to walk and to situate ourselves in an optimal way, and where to find sources that help replenish ourselves, to heal and to also water. So when we get off the airplane, we're at 100%, and we have the place and strength to engage in a new landscape, our lives, for a new day, a new hour, new encounter, new situation, a new moment, a new second. The space is always fresh, 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 present, 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 present. Every moment is a new moment. It's a new invitation. And we're learning how to live in freshness. Okay, so it's no longer 8 or whatever. We're at, so 9:10, yes? See you at 9:10. Okay. So why don't we take a moment to make sure we stretch our legs? Or any tightness that we feel in our body. It's important to make sure there's a proper flow, and muscle and tendon tightness is kind of goes against that. So let's take a moment and make sure we have a little stretch in us. All right. So posture is important. Make sure this is on. Okay. So we're going to check our alignment and resonate with our prayer space. I'm not quite sure yet where we're going with this because I've been sort of running around getting ready. So put the fingertips together. Deep breath. Exhale. Sometimes when I start to help find that interior place, I actually put both of my hands sort of in a prayer posture, but with the palms sort of open over my face. Sort of the tips of the fingers, sort of where the third eye is, and the hand sort of cupped open, which covers my eyes and my mouth and most of my face, and I lean forward. I shouldn't do that while I'm trying to speak, it muffles my voice. And then I put my hand there, sort of an open cup position with the fingertips around the third eye, and the open hand covering my eyes and my mouth, and then I lean a little forward in sort of a prayer to connect. And I find that really calms me down and really helps me to connect into the holy space I've created, or if I just really need to pray anywhere that I am. It's something about covering the eyes and having the hands over the face brings a certain warmth to the facial area, and with the back slightly inclined forward, moves the energy of the body a little forward over the third eye area, which is where, and the crown, where we're able to connect with higher frequencies. So we're working with our entire body, even though some of these terms may sound foreign to you. They're real, trust me. We'll get more into those things in the future. But we're working with our body in alignment, and as opposed to our energy going every which way because we don't know how to work with our roots and with how the energy flows, the water and the nutrients flow within our bodies, we don't know exactly how to move to help remove the static blocks. So by doing this, postures like I just described helps us align and cultivate a space which helps us go forward with our practices in a more powerful, deeper way. And as well, it's just a wonderful place to pray and connect with God at the very beginning of our practice. So you can do what I've suggested, or you could put your fingertips together beneath sort of your pecs or breasts and angle the hand in the right direction, which I've spoken about in the past and briefly this morning, and just find that still place, and let's stay there for a little bit to kind of begin. All this is a prayer. We approach our shrine, prayer altar space reverently. We have on it things that we resonate as being holy, or remind us of holy things, or help us align with holy things. We light our candle, inviting in God. We light our incense, offering it up to God. Put sometimes the incense around our body or the sacred objects or around our room. And all of this is an offering in prayer, an alignment with the sacred and divine, and also an offering. It's a prayer. So our prayer really begins as we approach our shrine. We approach with reverence, we engage with it with reverence. And then when we finally sit down and we've oriented ourselves, then we take that moment to find that still place of reverence and prayer. We can say, actual prayers, or it could also come unstructured from our heart, just a reaching out of energy, of gratitude, of having that space, and also with time and energy of connection, where you just resonate with that divine energy and your heart feels whole, because you feel the presence and you feel that you're home and that you're safe. So let's connect in. It's also a prayer of asking God to come join you, His energy to reach out, His Shekhinah to touch you. It could be a prayer of longing or of gratitude, of just saying, God, I'm here. Let me feel this practice. Let me heal it's really very individual to what you're feeling right now at this moment. Because at this moment, a very personal conversation begins. So when you've done with that, just rest in that space that you've cultivated. That space that can feel like a warmth at your heart center. This energetic center of your body. That warmth there, that seat of your soul. At the core of you where love and warmth and wholeness lives. And maybe just rest there for a moment in that space, allowing that energy to fill your whole body, so it feels like your body's in that cocoon. And if you're not able to feel it yet, just imagine a warm bubble around you, like a warm blanket, not too heavy, thin, but yet has that warmth, and you're able to relax into it and let go. So you could visualize the feeling of that and feel it, or find that object in your closet or drawers and put it around you, so you feel that holding and presence of comfort, and allow your body to relax into that. So we'll do this for a little bit. Remember to breathe, relax, let go of any tension, and just open. So from that space, we are cultivating. I invite you to do whichever practice you feel called to do, working with the name of God. So I have the sheet. You could add any name of God that you choose. Hashem, El Shaddai, Adonai. I don't think all the names are up here. These were a formula of multiple names that we were beginning to work on 2.5 months ago. I think we only got to the first 2 or 3. But these are ones that I've worked with, and they're interchangeable, as you can see, and you could add names as you so choose. Like Hashem, El Shaddai. You could interchange Abba, Elohim, El Shaddai. So this is working with multiple names of God. By combining them, activates certain frequencies in certain ways that can be very helpful for certain imbalances. And that's why certain names work at certain times, certain days, or certain periods in one's life, weeks, months, years even, or for one's entire life. The frequencies have different tones and have different aspects of God's nature embedded in them. And like medicine, it has the right proportions which you may need or not need. And so you find a name that feels like home. Like you do it and you're like, oh my God, where have you been? Oh my gosh, if I knew this 10 years ago. Oh my God, this name. Oh my God. Well, that's the name you should use if you have that oh my God reaction. But even if it feels like, oh, this works. Oh, I feel good by reciting this. I feel healed. I feel whole. I feel like this is really helping me. Then that's a good name. And you could work with different names, those that are not listed, different orders of them. But if it makes you feel ill, it twists you up, or the energy bunches, which it does do if the order is not, just doesn't work. I think there's certain orders that just don't work because the frequency order isn't there, just by the way this works. So you experiment, but there'll be some names that just don't feel good. Do not do them. This is supposed to be a path that helps relieve. It's not an astringent that should hurt. Because if it hurts, then it's off. Okay? I'll speak more about the nuance between those two extremes in the future. But for right now, go into one that works, that feels good. And you could also just use a single name. Or if there's a specific prayer that has the same effect for you that you feel called to use. Or you can do the Aleph practice of last week, which I'm not going to describe again today. So there's a lot of options. And you could vary from one to the next and move around if you feel called. And certain names may just spontaneously come up. Certain orders of them may spontaneously come up. Those listed are ones that just came out of me one day, different days, not all at once. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I wrote them down. I said, in the future, this order may help people. It helps me. I don't want to forget this. And I wrote down the qualities which I felt worked with some of these names, but I didn't put them here because it could vary from person to person. And also I didn't want to frame how people engage with the names, to leave it more open-ended. And if you need healing particularly, you could add the word Rapha, which means healing. So Abba El Shaddai Rapha is Father God Almighty that heals, that healeth. And so it engenders a healing frequency from those attributes and names of God, from those frequencies. So it specifies healing. But they all heal. But sometimes we really want to really engage with that because there's really something there. And that's the core of our prayer. So do with it as you wish. It's open-ended. It's all offered. And as we're doing it in a group, I think, why don't we just all pray together for about, let's say, 15 minutes? And after a while, if you say the names, you could also sit in that presence or in that energy that's created by the name. And then you could continue again, or you stay there. If you find that your attention is pulled away and you go off and lose thoughts that aren't with what the prayer is, or something about the past or tomorrow or after this, then just gently bring your attention back and then go back into your prayer. Anchoring in a mantra will help bring that energy centered and release with what was going in your mind, and help train your mind to remain in presence, which is important. One begins to discover that in presence, there's equilibrium. It's not just the sake of being present for the sake of being present because it's a thing to do. One discovers that when there is less movement, one lives in one's core more, where there's balance and wisdom and space, and one is less reactive and more intentional and more aligned. And that's when really one of the reasons we try to cultivate being present in what's arising in the moment, because it's very empowering. It firmly puts us in our seat, firmly able to control our car, and it allows us to not have a dirty windshield, which occurs more so when we're not present, when we're in our energies, when we are reactive. So now we bring in God to bring in that divine alignment, to bring us into alignment. So please do as you feel called, what speaks to your heart, what speaks to you as leading you back to your alignment, that wholeness, that Shekhinah, that inner temple, beautiful inner temple of 24 karat gold that lives inside. So 15 minutes, my friends. Okay. So if people wish to continue, they're welcome to do so. People wish to go out into a natural environment today and have a little more stillness and quiet in their life. You know, that's a possibility. I also, at the end, I had a note I wanted to mention. I'm editing the pictures that I have attached to the website of the Aleph and things. I was originally had the intent of trying to keep people using the images as I present them. But as I started working with them to add more warmth or color or something, there's a large variation, and it really is up to individual people as to what works for them. A lot of people don't understand fully energy and colors and objects yet. So I was trying to create a sort of framework to kind of keep everyone within the lines. But at the same time, there's individual preferences. So I thought it would be better just to explain sort of the general parameters. If one wants to adjust some of the images, it should feel what feels the most holy and whole to you, what you're able to resonate with the most. So keep it within the scope of what's already there, warm, golden, orange colors, but you can vary them to add more vibrance or things of that nature, but don't so much work with editing the image or altering the color too much, because the color and everything is showing something. At least with regards to when you put it for your meditation space. But feel free to go in. I've provided large DPI objects, for most part, photographs, so people can go in and create the size they wish and have the full latitude. But keep it within the scope of what's presented, so you make sure you have the right resonance with it. Yes? And I'm still working with some of the images, and then once I have one that I find is the best, as I tweak them, I'll post that one on the website. Also, the images that are not of higher quality, that aren't really fixable, even though I've kind of tried, I'll be removing them, particularly the tree of life with the flower of life in the background. At least with my capacity, there's not much I can do with it. I'll post new pictures, when I'll be able to create them, that have a similar theme. So if people are particularly attached to that one, feel free to download it this week before it's gone. I'm going to focus only on high quality images. I wanted to present it because I presented it during the teaching, and I found it highly inspiring, as well as it really had a powerful teaching behind it. But sadly, the image is what it is, and can't really be fixed up. So I hope this week has been a blessing for you with these teachings, and I hope it brings light into your world and your families and your communities. So I wish you all a blessed Sunday, and all my best wishes for the week to come. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to being with you all next week. Bye-bye.